Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at how to understand the messages of the Universal House of Justice.
Ooh.
And we have this fantastic guide as our source material.
Right.
And I think it's safe to say you're looking to really get a grasp on these messages.
Absolutely.
You know how they apply to your life. And of course, make sure your understanding is aligned with the Baha'i teachings.
For sure.
It's like having a roadmap for navigating the complexities of our world and building a better future.
Right. That's a great way to put it. So this guide does emphasize that solid understanding requires a deep dive into the foundation of it all, the Baha'i teachings themselves.
Makes me think of that quote from Shoghi Effendi.
Okay.
You know the one about the teachings being like a vast ocean?
Oh, right.
We can wade in the shallows or we can plunge into the depths.
Yeah.
And this deep dive feels like we're getting ready for that plunge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about more than just knowing the basic principles like unity and justice. The messages build on these concepts in profound ways.
Yeah.
For example, the House of Justice often draws parallels between principles like progressive revelation and the need for humanity to constantly adapt to new knowledge and challenges.
So to really understand these messages, we need to be able to connect those dots to see how those core principles are being applied in new and complex situations.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's where historical awareness comes in as well.
Okay.
If we understand the context in which these messages were revealed, the specific challenges the Baha'i community was facing at the time, it adds another layer of understanding. Take, for example, the message on race unity that was written during the height of the Civil Rights Movement. Understanding that historical context helps us grasp the urgency and significance of the message in a deeper way.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's like when you're reading a novel and you understand the author's life and the historical events that influence their writing it adds a whole new dimension to the story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, the guide also emphasizes that understanding is just the first step.
Okay.
We also need to be able to put these teachings into action. And that brings us to the Baha'i framework for action.
This is where things start to get really exciting.
Yes.
We're moving from theory to practice, from knowledge to application.
Yes. And the framework the House of Justice has laid out is fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it really encourages both individual initiative and collective action.
Okay. Help me understand this better.
Sure.
How does that work in practice?
Think of it like a dance with intricate steps and flowing movements.
All right.
The core activities like study circles and devotional gatherings provide a rhythmic foundation,
Gotcha.
a way for individuals to connect and grow spiritually.
So that's the individual aspect.
Right.
But how does collective action come into play?
Well, as individuals deepen their understanding, they naturally begin to see opportunities for service, for contributing to the betterment of their communities.
Yeah.
They can initiate their own endeavors or collaborate with others.
Right.
And the House of Justice often calls for collective efforts in specific areas like socioeconomic development.
So it's about taking those spiritual principles and translating them into tangible action.
Exactly.
Working together to create positive change in the world.
For example, the House of Justice often highlights the importance of education. We see this reflected not only in their messages encouraging universal access to education, but also in practical initiatives like the establishment of Baha'i-inspired schools around the world.
Like that school you mentioned earlier, the Fun BAC project in Colombia.
Yes.
It's inspiring to see how they're weaving together education, agriculture, and healthcare to empower that rural community.
It is.
Yeah.
And these efforts aren't just about providing material resources. They're about applying spiritual principles like unity, justice, and consultation to create a more just and equitable society.
And speaking of consultation, the guide really emphasizes its importance
Absolutely.
in understanding and applying these messages.
It's like having a team of navigators working together to chart the course.
Okay.
Each individual brings their unique perspective and insights.
Yeah.
And through a process of collaborative deliberation,
Right.
they arrive at a shared understanding and a unified plan of action.
It's about leveraging the collective wisdom of the community to navigate complex issues and make sound decisions.
Yes.
It's not about imposing one's own opinions, but about seeking a unified path forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the guide doesn't stop at the practical aspects of action and consultation.
Okay.
It delves into something even deeper: the need for both spiritual and intellectual preparedness.
Now we're getting into the mindset.
Right.
The inner qualities that are needed to truly grasp these messages.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's about approaching these messages with humility and detachment.
Okay.
Recognizing that our understanding is limited and that we need to be open to divine guidance. We have to remember that these messages are not just words on a page. They're infused with spiritual potency.
It reminds me of that quote from Baha'u'llah.
Okay.
Immerse yourselves in the ocean of Jix, my words, that ye may unravel its secrets and discover all the pearls of wisdom that lie hid in its depths. It's not a passive reading, it's a deep immersion.
A beautiful analogy.
Yeah.
And just as a diver needs the right equipment and training to explore the ocean depths, we need to cultivate those inner qualities that allow us to delve into the depths of these messages.
So spiritual preparedness is about creating that receptive space within ourselves.
Exactly.
Cultivating those qualities of humility, detachment, and a thirst for truth.
But the guide also emphasizes intellectual preparedness.
Okay.
These messages often deal with complex global challenges and require a nuanced understanding of both the current world and the Baha'i perspective.
So it's not just about having a pure heart, but also a sharp mind. We need to be able to think critically, analyze information, and connect the dots.
You got it.
Yeah.
For example, a message about climate change might require us to understand the science behind it, the social and economic implications, and the Baha'i principles of environmental stewardship.
It's like having a powerful telescope. We need to know how to use it properly to explore the vastness of the universe.
A great analogy. And just as an astronomer needs to constantly update their knowledge and refine their techniques, we need to be lifelong learners, always seeking to deepen our understanding of both the world and the Baha'i teachings.
This is also fascinating.
It is.
We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
Yes, we have.
The foundational teachings, the framework for action, and the need for both spiritual and intellectual preparation.
And we've just scratched the surface.
Wow.
There's so much more to explore
Really?
in terms of how we put this knowledge into practice, how we navigate challenges, and how we ultimately contribute to building a better world.
We'll be back in a moment to continue our exploration.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned.
Okay. One thing that really struck me in this guide is how much it emphasizes the dynamic interplay between individual understanding and collective action.
That's an interesting observation.
Yeah.
So it's not just about each person figuring things out on their own, but about this constant conversation and collaboration within the community.
Exactly. It's like a tapestry.
Okay.
With each individual thread contributing to the overall beauty and complexity of the design.
I like that.
Yeah, the guide highlights study circles as a prime example of this.
It's not just about reading the messages together, but about creating a space for deep reflection and shared understanding.
And what's fascinating is that this collective exploration often leads to new insights and applications that might not have emerged from individual study alone.
So it's like each person is bringing a piece of the puzzle, and through their interactions, they start to see the bigger picture more clearly.
Precisely. And of course, we can't forget about consultation with institutions like local and national spiritual assemblies.
Yeah.
The guide stresses that these institutions are not just administrative bodies, but sources of guidance and clarification.
It makes me think of the analogy of a garden.
Okay.
Individuals are like the plants striving to grow and flourish.
Yeah.
But they need the support of the gardener, the institutions, to provide the right conditions, nourishment, and guidance.
That's a beautiful analogy. And just as a skilled gardener knows when to prune and when to water, these institutions can help us refine our understanding and apply the messages in a way that's both effective and unified.
But what about the internal dimension? You know, the spiritual side of things. The guide touches on the importance of devotional life in understanding these messages.
Yes, that's crucial. Prayer and meditation are not just rituals, they're practices that allow us to connect with the divine, to open our hearts and minds to spiritual insights.
It's like tuning a radio to the right frequency. If we're not in that receptive state, those subtle messages might get lost in the static.
And that inner transformation is essential. Because ultimately the goal is not just to intellectually grasp these messages, but to embody them, to let them shape our thoughts, words, and actions.
Right. It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. And that's where this idea of action-oriented reflection comes in.
Okay.
The guide encourages us to see the world as our laboratory, to constantly experiment, to apply these teachings in our daily lives, and then reflect on the outcomes.
So it's not about passively absorbing these messages,
right,
but about actively engaging with them, seeing how they play out in the real world.
Precisely. And this requires a certain level of detachment.
Okay.
We can't be so attached to our own interpretations or expectations that we're unwilling to adapt our approach based on experience.
So it's about being humble, recognizing that we might not always get things right the first time.
Right.
And being willing to learn and grow from our mistakes.
Exactly. And that's where consultation with others becomes so vital.
Okay.
It allows us to get feedback, to challenge our assumptions, and to refine our understanding through dialogue.
It's like a dance where we're constantly adjusting our steps, responding to our partner's movements, and striving to create something beautiful together.
What a lovely image. And that brings us back to the central role of the Universal House of Justice in this whole process.
Right.
They're not just issuing pronouncements from on high. They're engaging in a dynamic conversation with humanity, responding to our needs and guiding us towards a brighter future.
It's like they're holding a lantern, illuminating the path ahead. Helping us navigate the complexities of our time.
But we have to remember that it's not a static path. The messages are constantly evolving, responding to the changing needs of humanity.
So it's not about clinging to rigid interpretations, but about being flexible, adaptable, and always willing to refine our understanding.
Exactly, and that's what makes this journey so exciting. It's a process of continuous discovery, growth, and transformation.
I agree.
But it also raises an important question.
Okay, what's that?
How do we ensure that these messages are reaching everyone?
That's a good question.
Especially those who might not have access to the same resources or opportunities.
That's a crucial point. We live in a world of vast inequalities, where access to information, education, and even basic necessities is not evenly distributed.
And that's where the principle of justice comes in. How do we apply these teachings in a way that promotes equity and inclusivity? How do we make sure that everyone has the opportunity to benefit from these transformative messages?
It's a complex challenge for sure.
It is.
But it's also a call to action.
Absolutely.
We can't just sit back and wait for someone else to fix these systemic problems.
Right.
We need to be proactive, creative, and resourceful in finding ways to bridge those gaps.
Absolutely. It's about putting those principles of unity and justice into action, working together to create a world where everyone has the chance to flourish, regardless of their background, beliefs, or circumstances.
It's a beautiful vision, but it also requires a lot of hard work, dedication, and sacrifice.
It does.
We can't just talk about unity and justice. We have to embody them, live them out in our daily lives.
And that's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak.
Right.
It's about translating those lofty ideals into tangible actions. Making choices that reflect those values, even when it's difficult, even when it's uncomfortable.
So it's not just about big sweeping gestures, but about those small everyday choices that cumulatively make a difference.
Precisely. It's about how we treat each other, how we use our resources, how we engage in our communities, how we raise our children. It's about weaving those principles of unity, justice, and love into the very fabric of our lives.
It's a tall order, but it's also incredibly empowering.
It is.
It means that each of us has the capacity to contribute to building a better world, even in small ways.
And that brings us to another crucial point. How do we maintain our hope and resilience in the face of all the challenges and setbacks that inevitably arise? How do we stay committed to this vision of a better world, even when things feel overwhelming?
That's a powerful question, and it's one that we'll explore in depth when we return for the final part of our deep dive. Okay, so we're back, ready to wrap up our deep dive into these messages from the Universal House of Justice. We've talked about, building a solid foundation of understanding, the framework for action, the importance of inner transformation.
Absolutely.
But as we all know, putting those principles into practice isn't always a smooth journey.
You're absolutely right. Life is full of twists and turns, and we're bound to encounter challenges and setbacks along the way.
For sure.
But the Baha'i teachings offer a unique perspective on how to navigate those difficult moments, not just endure them, but actually learn and grow from them.
That resonates with me. It's not about avoiding hardship altogether, but about facing it with a different lens.
Yes.
Maybe even finding opportunities for transformation within those challenges.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And one of the key concepts highlighted in this guide is the idea of tests.
Tests.
Now, when we hear the word test, we might think of exams or trials.
Yeah, for sure.
But in the Baha'i writings, tests are viewed as opportunities for spiritual growth.
It's like that saying, smooth seas never made a skilled sailor.
Exactly.
We're not meant to just coast through life effortlessly.
Right.
But to face those headwinds that refine our character and deepen our understanding.
What a perfect analogy.
So,
These tests can manifest in countless ways. Personal struggles, setbacks in our work, conflicts in relationships, or even global crises.
Oh, wow.
The key is to approach them not as punishments or random occurrences, but as opportunities disguised as challenges, carefully designed to draw out our potential.
I'm starting to see how this shift in perspective can be so powerful.
Yeah.
It's not about asking, why me? But rather, what is this experience trying to teach me? How can I emerge from this stronger and wiser?
Exactly. Yeah. And the Baha'i writings offer a wealth of guidance on how to navigate these tests. One principle that stands out is the importance of patience.
Patience.
Not passive resignation, but active endurance with steadfastness and hope.
I feel like patience is that virtue we all admire, yet struggle to practice, especially in today's world of instant gratification and quick fixes.
Yeah.
It's hard to embrace the slow burn of growth, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Yeah.
But true patience, as described in the Baha'i writings, is about aligning our will with the divine will, trusting that even though the path ahead might be obscured by fog, there's a guiding light leading us towards our ultimate purpose.
It makes me think of those stunning time-lapse videos of flowers blooming.
Oh, yeah.
From our limited perspective, it seems like nothing's happening.
Right.
But behind the scenes, there's this intricate, gradual process unfolding.
That's a beautiful image.
Yeah.
And just as a gardener patiently tends to the seeds, nurturing their growth without forcing the process.
Right.
We too need to trust in the timing of our own spiritual development.
So patience becomes this act of faith, a surrender to a wisdom greater than our own.
Yes, and this is where the principle of trust in God becomes paramount.
Okay.
Even when we feel lost or overwhelmed, we can find solace in knowing that we're not alone.
Yeah.
A higher power is guiding us, supporting us, even in the midst of hardship.
It's like having an invisible safety net.
Yeah.
Even if we stumble or fall, there's a force gently catching us, ensuring we don't shatter.
But here's a crucial point. Trust in God doesn't mean sitting back and passively waiting for things to magically improve.
Right.
We still have a role to play, efforts to make. It's about striving to overcome challenges and contribute to the betterment of the world.
So it's about channeling that trust into purposeful action.
Precisely.
Like the old saying goes, pray as if everything depends on God and work as if everything depends on you.
Now, this guide also encourages us to see challenges not just as individual tests, but as collective opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
Think about the world today, climate change, social injustice, economic inequality.
For sure.
These aren't just isolated issues. They're interconnected threads in the fabric of humanity's experience.
It's like we're all in the same boat navigating turbulent waters together.
Exact.
And while it can feel overwhelming, maybe these global crises are actually pushing us towards a necessary transformation.
That's a profound way to look at it.
Yeah.
The Baha'i writings talk about this time as a period of transition, where old systems are crumbling and a new world order is slowly emerging.
Wow.
These crises are like birth pangs. Challenging, but ultimately paving the way for something new and better.
And the messages from the Universal House of Justice offer guidance on how to navigate this turbulent transition.
Exactly.
They're like a compass, pointing us towards a future where unity, justice, and sustainability prevail.
They provide a framework for collective action, encouraging us to address these challenges not as isolated individuals, but as a unified global community.
So it's about harnessing our individual efforts, guided by those universal principles, to contribute to a collective transformation. It's not just about saving ourselves, but about working together to create a world worthy of future generations.
That's a beautiful way to sum it up.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the importance of hope.
Hope.
Without hope, it's easy to become overwhelmed, by the sheer magnitude of the challenges we face.
It's true. Hope is that fuel that keeps us going when the tank feels empty. That spark that ignites our imagination and fuels our actions.
And the Baha'i teachings offer a profound vision of hope.
Okay.
Rooted in the belief that humanity is not inherently flawed, but capable of incredible transformation.
Yeah.
A brighter future is not just possible, it's inevitable.
Why?
As long as we continue to strive for it.
It's a beautiful and empowering message.
It is.
It doesn't shy away from the difficulties, but it also doesn't let us wallow in despair.
Right.
It calls us to action.
Yeah.
To unity. And to an unwavering belief in our collective capacity to create a better world.
Exactly. So as we conclude this deep dive, I think the key takeaway is this. The messages from the Universal House of Justice are not just pronouncements to be passively absorbed, but living, breathing guides for navigating life's complexities.
They offer practical tools, spiritual insights, and a roadmap for creating a world that reflects those cherished principles of unity, justice, and love.
Absolutely.
And they remind us that even amidst the storms, we have the power to choose hope, to choose action, and to choose to contribute to building a world worthy of our highest aspirations.
Beautifully said.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
We hope these insights inspire you to continue exploring the messages of the Universal House of Justice and find meaningful ways to apply them in your own life.
Absolutely.